Welcome back to Winning Isn't Easy. Let's talk about disability insurance companies' return to work guidelines and what you need to know about their call to you about a return to work. Now, disability insurance companies or plans are not in the business of paying benefits. Are you surprised? Their goal is to get you off your disability benefits as quickly as possible. And one of the ways in which they do that is to continually review your medical records. They have their medical consultant staff determine whether they think you're able to return to work. The disability carrier plan often have their consultants speak with your doctor and have them agree that a return to work is appropriate. And once your physician agrees that you're able to return to work, you just might get a claims denial. But before that, you might get a telephone call from the claims examiner. Now, don't be surprised that you get a call if your physician doesn't think that you've returned to work, because they're playing games with your physician. And ultimately, that's a topic for another day. But let's assume for the purpose of this discussion that either your doctor has agreed to your return to work, or that the disability carrier doesn't care what your doctor has to say. Their doctor says you can return to work. So what are the three things that are going to be discussed in this return to work phone call that the disability carrier or plan is going to have with you? Well, of course, the purpose of the call is to get you to agree with your physician's agreement with them that you can return to work, or get you to agree that their physicians say that you can return to work. And then they're going to talk to you about the date that you think you could return to work. The three things that are going to be discussed during the course of this call is: one, whether you agree that your medical or behavioral health impairments allow you to return to work. Two, whether you agree with the date of return to work that their doctor is proposing, or the claims examiner is proposing, and whether there are any vocational issues that need to be addressed regarding the estimated return to work. Now, this discussion is presuming that, in fact, you have a job to return to with your employer. And if not, it might even include an offer, a generous offer of vocational services to assist you in returning to work with your employer, who may or may not want you back, and any other employer in the local economy. The phone call template is one that we see regularly, and it's going to start out like this. Are you ready for this? I'm your disability claims examiner. I'm your friendly claims examiner who have your best interests at heart. And I want to talk with you about the date your attending physician indicates you'll be physically or emotionally able to return to work. I want to make sure we're on the same page so that we understand your needs and support your return to work on this magic date. Your physician has suggested that the return to work date is tomorrow. What do you think about this? Now, this might be the first time you've heard this little narrative and a release to return to work. And if that's the case, I suggest that you advise the claims examiner that you want to speak with your doctor about this return to work date and information before continuing the discussion. Now, how you answer this question will determine what happens next in your disability insurance claim. If you say, I agree, well, guess what? Your benefits are going to be terminated. You can be assured of that. So the phone call template then requires the claims examiner to discuss whether there are any vocational issues that you might have that they could help you with in a return to work scenario. And these questions include something like, do you have a job to return to? Do you have transportation issues? Will you need accommodation in the workplace? Do you think that you could return to work full-time or part-time? What would need to be done to allow you to go back to work full-time? Do you have any vocational issues you'd like to discuss with our vocational rehabilitation counselor? Now, you got to think closely about those answers. And in fact, you might ask for some time to think about those answers, get off the phone, and then hire an ERISA disability attorney, because you know you're being set up. But once you've answered those questions, the claims examiner will try to note that you're in agreement with a return to work date. And the claims examiner may reach out to your employer to see whether or not there's a job available that can be offered to you so that you can return to work. Now, your employer does not have to offer you a job, and the disability carrier generally doesn't have to provide you with any vocational services. In fact, sometimes the policies will say that even if your employer doesn't offer you accommodation, that's too bad, so sad. And there is no, as we've said, affirmative obligation on an employer to make any accommodations. And so you're caught again in this catch-22 situation. Now, they may offer you vocational assistance in finding other work if your employer doesn't want you back. The disability carrier or plan really doesn't have a big obligation to provide you with those services, even though the policy may say that they do. What they'll do is they may give you a call and ask some questions about your work history, your educational background, and then their vocational evaluator will say, well, we think that they have transferable skills to these 3 different kinds of jobs. And by the way, there are all sorts of jobs in the national economy or the local economy that you would be capable of performing mythically or hypothetically that would pay a wage such that no benefits are due to you. They don't have to have an employer identified. They don't have to have an employer offer you a job. They don't necessarily have to do any of that under the terms of the policy. They just simply have to show that you are able to go back to work based on their physician's review or your physician's acquiescence, that there is work that you can do either in your own field with or without transferable skills. And depending on the definition of disability, if you're at the any occupation stage, that you've got these skills that you could take to any kind of job or occupation that you wouldn't want to do that doesn't necessarily pay the wage that you were getting, but just simply pays a wage such that mathematically the disability carrier doesn't owe you any money. And guess who gets the short stick? You do. They're going to deny the claim or terminate benefits by saying that you're able to return to work either in your own occupation or in any occupation, leaving you holding the bag. So what happens if you disagree with the return to work date? Of course, the disability claims examiner doesn't want to hear that you're unable to return to work. The disability claims examiner is going to ask you questions about your perceptions of your medical or your emotional status, the symptoms that you have that, in your opinion, prevent you from performing your own occupation or any occupation. Whether you want to discuss this with your physician, and whether or not you understand your prognosis for further recovery and why it is that you should be able to go back to work at this point, whether or not you maybe don't want to return to work because of issues with your family, childcare issues, or better yet, that, your employer just doesn't want you back and you really don't like your job and you like staying at home. They may ask you if you want to schedule a conversation with your doctor to discuss those kinds of things and then have a discussion with them again once you've had an opportunity to have this discussion with your physician. And they're going to document this call in their adjusting notes, and we'll give you a follow-up call. They'll try to get you to agree that, we'll call you back in 10 days once you've had an opportunity to talk to your doctor. And guess what? At 8 a.m. on the 10th day, they're going to be calling you, and they're going to go through the same kind of questions. And they're going to be looking for reasons that they can document in this conversation to justify a claims denial or termination. Like you didn't talk to the doctor, or your doctor did confirm that you could go back to work, or that notwithstanding the fact that you don't think you can go back to work and your doctor doesn't think you can go back to work, they'll tease out of you reasons why you don't allegedly want to go back to work. Childcare issues, school care issues, transportation issues, disputes that you had with your employer or coworkers, because they want to tag the reason why you don't want to go back to work, not to your disabling medical condition, but because of all other types of reasons that have nothing to do with your disability. They may, in the course of this second discussion, question your symptoms, your functionality, your activities of daily living, the side effects of medication. And they're looking for inconsistencies between what's in your medical records, what you're putting on your activities of daily living forms, and what you're telling the adjuster, because they're going to cherry pick those inconsistencies and say, hey, our doctors say that, you can go back to work, and we really don't care what your doctor has to say, because your doctor is relying on your complaints about your symptoms and functionality. And all that's inconsistent with what you're telling us in your conversations with us, in your activity of daily living forms, or better yet, the surveillance that we've got of you. So these return to work calls, I think, are just another setup. And if you're getting a return to work phone call, that should tell you that the disability carrier is looking for reasons to deny or terminate your benefits. And that's a clue to consult with an experienced ERISA disability attorney, because you're being set up for a claims denial or termination. You need protection now, not before, during, or after that call, and when your benefits have been denied or terminated. Don't you agree? Let's take a quick break.